When you're practicing, you're probably working on playing some solid 8-note lines, really spelling out the changes, maybe hitting the right extensions or use the hippest arpeggio or the strangest sounding scale. Of course, that's a part of jazz. You want to have that side of your playing covered as well. But at the same time, it's not the only thing you need to work on. I think if you're only working on this, then you're missing out some really important skills that you need to develop as an improviser as well. I'm also pretty sure that your playing is going to suffer. So in this video, I'm going to go over 3 different exercises that are going to help you develop some other skills for your improvisations than just playing 8-note lines and using arpeggios. My name is Jens Larsen. If you want to learn more about jazz guitar and use that to make music, then subscribe to my channel. If you want to make sure not to miss anything, then click the little bell notification icon next to the subscribe button. What you hear me playing here is that I'm improvising over the song Lady Bird, and the solo that I'm playing is limited because I'm using 3 notes per chord. And the reason why I'm doing that is that that's a really good exercise if you want to work on quite a few different things in your playing. When you're working with only 3 notes per chord, then you're practicing making melodies that are not really depending on playing like large arpeggios or scale runs or lots of chromatic enclosures. You really have to come up with something that sounds nice just using those 3 notes. Of course, you're also practicing to choose the right 3 notes of each chord, and you're also working on finding a way from this chord to the next chord with a set of 3 notes where you can still play something that makes sense. If you're choosing sort of another set of 3 notes that are too far away or that somehow are really different sounding than the ones that you had on the previous chord, you can really hear that that's not connecting. So in that way, it's kind of forcing you to think about the larger context as well. And of course, when you're only using 3 notes, then you have to play a lot less and you can focus a lot more on the rhythm that you're playing. And that's also really a beneficial thing to work with instead of just trying to fill everything up with 8 notes or 16 notes. So the way I'm doing that on this song is that I'm playing 3 notes per chord, and actually some of the chords I'm also just putting together, so I'm using 3 notes for 2 chords. That gives me a little bit more time on each set of 3 notes. It makes it a little bit easier to move from chord to chord, but it also means that I have to be a little bit more creative with my 3 notes, and I have to be a little bit more careful with the note choice. So if we just look at the first 2 bars of C major 7, there I might use something like B, D, and E. I'm pretty sure I did that at one point. And then for the next 2 bars, so F minor 7 to B flat 7, I might do something really similar, which is just to move this up a half step, and then I have C, E flat, and F. And then I'll play something with that. And I think it's really useful to have these 3 note groups, and if you have at least like 2 bars to move, then you also have a little bit more time to voice lead this motif or find a similar motif that will work for the next chord set, and then in that way keep on working with it. And I also find that when I'm playing this, I'm really working on moving motifs and playing motifs with the 3 notes. And you can really hear if something sounds like a motif or if it sounds like a chord response. And I think developing this is really useful, and it will also carry over to when you start using more notes. The way I described this way of improvising was to call it vocal-like melodies, and that is a little bit just because I don't know a better term for it. But really, what I'm trying to do here is that I'm trying to improvise a solo where the melody that I'm improvising sounds like the melody of a standard. So I'm really trying to get it to the point where every note counts, where you can really hear I'm playing this note and I can already hear that I want to play this note afterwards. So I'm playing very few notes, not too concerned with rhythm. Of course it has to be in time, but I'm not trying to really do very sort of hip things or very strict things with the rhythm. I'm much more focused on what the sound of the note is, also what the sound of the note is against the chord, and how the longer melodic idea is moving and how that works. And I think this is really useful in general, just to practice to play what you hear, and of course also just to build a sense of melody. I think you'll find that a lot of the famous improvisers that we listen to are really strong with this. If you listen to somebody like Pat Metheny, he will have huge parts of his solos where he's playing, in all fairness, really simple melodies but extremely strong melodies, and working on this is something that's going to build your ability to play melodies like that. The reason that I can keep on publishing videos every week is that there is a community of people over on Patreon that are supporting the channel. I'm very grateful for their support, and it's because of them that I can keep on making all these jazz guitar and music theory videos. If you want to help me keep making videos, then check out my Patreon page, and if you join us over on Patreon, I can also give you something in return for your support. Another really great exercise if you want to develop your ability to be more creative when it comes to making melodies is to improvise and then purely play a solo that's a variation of the theme. So you're only going to be playing stuff that's coming out of the theme of the song that you're playing, of the melody of the song that you're playing. Of course, this does mean that you have to play a solo over a progression that's actually the same progression as that melody, but in most mainstream jazz that is usually the case, more or less at least. So you can work on it like that, and in that way you kind of have this this melody that you're starting with, and you need to embellish that, and you need to work with that and change that to create your own solo. And this is of course in many ways the original way of improvising in jazz. I think if you go back to Louis Armstrong and the swing guys, then that is really how they started, and then the whole approach of working with just the chord progression. So really reducing the song to a chord progression and then improvising over that is really just reducing the melody to a chord progression and then improvise from this, which I think is the most common thing. So I don't really know too many of the post-bebop players that improvise solely from the melody. There are a few that do it a lot, but there are not that many. If you know any, then please leave a comment on this video. I would be curious to hear about more of these, since I would say that most people don't do that too much actually. What you learn from this exercise is actually that you're really paying attention to how the melody is, and if you're playing a jazz standard, then that's going to be a really strong melody. I think we're underestimating how strong those melodies are most of the time. If you're just embellishing that melody, then you're starting with something that's really strong, and you're really exploring what happens when you start changing it. And of course sometimes that might be a good thing, and sometimes it might be not so good thing. But hey, that's also a part of exploring this, and that's why it's an exercise. It's not necessarily a performance. You want to work on this because you're working with a limitation. You're working with an improvisation where you can't just think about using whatever arpeggio that you want to. You have to tie it to the melody in some way. Being limited by this, again, is something that's going to help you be more creative and force you to learn new things about how to use the tools that you already have available when you're improvising. And you shouldn't forget that even though you're improvising from the melody, if you want to be really creative about it, then you can also take the melody and start moving around the order of the notes, or pull it into other places of the song. And in that way, right now, the way that I'm doing it in the demonstration, I'm pretty much just playing variations of the melody where it is originally in the song, but I could also just have taken one phrase and then move that through the entire piece. That's still improvising from the melody, even if it is a little bit more abstract. If you want to check out some more ideas on how you can really grow as an improviser, then check out this short playlist where I have a few videos that are really giving some ideas on how you can improvise in different ways, and also how you can really dig into the progression and really know the song. If you want to learn more about jazz guitar and this is the first time you see one of my videos, then subscribe to my channel. If you want to help me keep making videos, then check out my Patreon page. That's about it for this time. Thank you for watching, and until next time.